Hey everybody, Weston here with the Hidden Gibbon, and before I get into today's video, I wanted to give a huge shout out to a channel that I found, another small Magic the Gathering creator that makes great topics, because one of their videos is the kind of the jumping point for what I was going to talk about today, and that is really bad at MTG, really bad at Magic. And so I want you to check out their videos. They're awesome, great. You know, really bad. If you see this, I'm gonna tag your channel and stuff in a comment and stuff to give you proper credit. But with I'm telling you guys, this guy is awesome. He's great. If only I could aspire to have as good a production quality as him. But without further ado, the video that we are going to be talking about today is this one right here, which is EDH's nuclear arms race. And in there, he talks about how like pods will be sitting down and how it slowly becomes a nuclear arms race, right? Where somebody brings new tech to the table, which causes somebody else to bring new tech to the table, and then your friends spiral upwards. And I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on like this whole thing, but I would not feel right if I got the idea from for a video from somebody else and I did not give them the proper credit that they deserve. So once again, for anybody who watches this, please go subscribe to Really Bad at Magic. Go ahead and watch his EDH Nuclear Arms Race and all of his other videos, because all of the ones that I have watched so far have been really good and really fun. But without further ado, let's get straight into my own history of EDH Nuclear Arms Race, shall we? So, where do I begin with this, right? So, Really Bad, if you've watched his video, kind of talks about, like I said, where a pod will have this like nuclear arms race, right? So, maybe I should start at the beginning. So, I've been playing Commander, EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, whatever you want to refer to it as, for a very long time. I'm not exactly sure what the exact year was that we started, but I know it was before Alara block. And I remember some of my first commanders being like Jareth, Leonin Titan, Mangara of Corondor. When it got to Alara, it was Mael, Sharum, Janara. I know I had a mono green Omnath deck. I had I think it's Timor and Lumia commander deck. I know I had Azami Lady of Scrolls. I know I had a Numot the Devastator deck because I'm a jerk. And so back in the day when Commander was really new, when it was called EDH, right? The internet online discourse for Commander was not nearly what it is today. And in those early days, a 4-player pod wasn't even a certain thing, or at least in my play group, it wasn't. None of us had heard that. And so we would have this thing called Nerd on the Third, where my friend Brandon would host everybody, all of our friends. We'd all come for the third Saturday of the month, and we would come play Magic and board games and video games at his place above the theater that he worked in. And it was really fun. We would have, oh my god, I think I remember us having an 8 or 9 player pod where I think someone died before they got a second turn. But back in those days of Magic the Gathering, busted things were things like tunnel vision, condemn, because you could not. So say I have Monk Gyatso, right? And you kill my Monk Gyatso, I can just move him to the command zone, right? Or if you were to try to condemn him, I can just move him to the command zone. Back in the day, you couldn't do that. So if it got shuffled into your library, you were pretty much screwed. And that's why you'd have to run tutors to try to tutor it up. A lot of people would run wheel effects to get it back. And Tunnel Vision was a really strong card that would mill your deck. So you condemn, and then you name a card with Tunnel Vision, and you can mill somebody out of the game. And that was the tech back then. But we didn't even start with that. And without the internet there, and without things like EDHREC or Scryfall to be around, people just kind of had to figure out what was good. And honestly, in an early time, things like Tolarian Academy were legal. I remember me having a deck. I think it was Memnarch. Yeah, I had a Memnarch deck with Tolarian Academy in there, as well as like Strip Mine and Crucible of Worlds. Yeah, I've been a jerk since the start. But we start playing, right? And somebody gets that new tech, like what Really Bad was saying, right? And you know, it was really interesting because, you know, somebody would bring that new tech and I'm like, oh, damn, that's really good. I'm going to play that new tech in my deck. And that's kind of how it would go, spiraling, right? One person puts Wheel of Fortune in their deck, so everybody does. One person puts Gaia's Cradle in their deck, so everybody does. And that tells you all you need to know about prices of cards back when we first started playing. Because Wheel of Fortune was not expensive and Gaia's Cradle was like $20. 20 to 30 at most. Dual lands were like $60 for an Underground Sea. And that is how it kept going. And we kept going and going like that until it started peaking. And I remember a couple of the decks very vividly that were at the high level, right? They were the guys with more nukes than everybody else. The first one was my friend Jason. He had a Horde of Notions deck, and in that deck, he had Mana Drain, and this is before Mana Drain had any reprints, right? He had Mana Drain, he had the dual, all the duels in there, and he had like Palinchron with High Tide and other things to be able to double his mana, get infinite mana, right? And would do silly broken things that way. And that deck was like the deck to beat. It was really hard to beat, and it caused a lot of us to have to tune up our decks, right? Another one that I remember is my friend Aaron Dean having a Reaper King deck. And Reaper King was incredibly strong because he played a whole bunch of Scarecrows and just vindicated all of our stuff. We didn't have things like Teferi's Response or Heroic Intervention and things like that back then. You did not have those same level of cards. It's like, oh, at instant speed, gain indestructible. Very, very few, if any. Mana Rocks, you know, Darksteel Ingot was one of the better Mana Rocks, right? And we just got to this point where I mean, Aaron Dean disassembled his Reaper King deck because he got to the point where he was like just crushing us so badly that it was hard to get out from under it. Then we had a couple more guys start playing. We all got to know each other through the theater that we worked at, and I remember my friend John making a Jorah of the Get-To deck with its Suspend, and that was the new tech, and that was super powerful. So then the rest of us had to buy cards to do that. So that was the long, like, it just kept doing that. And over the years, it kept going, and then I sold my collection. I worked a cruddy job where I never got to do anything, never got to have fun, never got to be happy, never got to stop working. So I sold all my Magic cards. To this day, I have a whole video about it. I hate that I did that, and you know what? It's one of my biggest regrets in life. But took a few years off from Magic, and then when I got back in, couldn't afford a whole lot, so I bought some precons. I bought the Ur-Dragon precon, and I bought the Atraxa precon. Those were the two precons I had. And the Ur-Dragon precon, be perfectly honest with you, it couldn't hang. It couldn't hang with the pod that I was in. By this point in time, most of the Nerd on the Third was not a thing anymore. Most of our friends had moved away, married, kids, etc. Couldn't play. And so it kind of was just myself, my friend Jason, my friend Aaron Dean, another guy named RB, and then that was just, we would play. Usually on Sundays, we'd go over to Aaron Dean's house, or we would, come to my house that I was renting, or if somebody else hosted, go there, and we would play Magic. And my precons couldn't really hang. And so I started upgrading, and I upgraded, where is Atraxa? Here it is. I still have it, and pretty much hasn't been updated in several years, but it slowly, over time, became Atraxa Super Friends. And that is still what it is today. It's Atraxa Super Friends. I know, really original idea, friends, but this is part of the problem with Commander design today. Is it kind of like cards like Atraxa just kind of narrow you into a bucket. So we have Super Friends in here. We got a little bit of poison and stuff like that. And this deck actually started to be able to perform. By this point in time, Jason wasn't running Horde of Notions anymore. That deck was launched instead. He was running Norin the Wary with ETB effects, things like Confusion in the Ranks, Warstorm Surge, Genesis Chamber, etc. to do a lot of busted things. And that is still the deck that he plays today, is Norin the Wary. It's the only Commander deck that he has assembled. And then, by this point, Aaron had Vishkal and Aurelia. And both of those were very strong. But I was able to win one here or there. So, you know, all fun. And then our friend Mitch comes back. You know, Mitch, the guy who joined the channel for CDH, comes back. And he brings in Urza. And Urza is a house, let me tell you. And you know... We got pub stomped by that. But in our pod, with Jason having his Norin deck that is approximately $15,000 is what I think he said, between all the pimped cards and really expensive cards like Foil Grim Monolith, etc. And then Aaron Dean has like a notebook full of notes, like just writing down all of his stuff to hypertune his deck. And so they were very well made and very well structured. And so we got to this point where we're starting to do this. And I started stabilizing in my life, so I was able to build a lot more Magic decks. And so I could build things like my quote-unquote Law and Order deck, which and my Tokens deck. So like Riss and Grand Arbiter were two decks that were... Sorry, had to get a drink of water. That were some of my homebrewed ones once we got going. And Grand Arbiter was a take on my original Grand Arbiter deck. And then, you know, building things like Shieldred, upgrading my Hobbit food deck. And we got to this point where we were all very strong. All very strong. And then I took a different career path. I worked in politics for a while. I worked for... Bernard Sanders during 2020. And then I worked in North Carolina for some political stuff that same time. And so I went down to North Carolina for 2020. And I got to go to a couple local game stores where I played Commander. And I discovered something, friends. We had a nuclear arms race in our pod, where it was myself, Jason, etc., without ever knowing it. And this is before Mitch came back too. Like even before Mitch came back. And I crushed the table. My deck that could, my Atraxa Super Friends that could barely hang in there, or my upgraded Dragon deck, or Law and Order with its like 30 lands, or Riss with its like 32 lands. Decks that held their own but couldn't win a lot in the pod that I'm used to were obliterating the table in these pods in these local games. And it really kind of like blew my mind, because I thought that I was terrible. I am terrible at Magic. Let's be honest here. Some of you have spotted like some of the mistakes I've made with my deck text, how I pronounce something, or how I remember a rule. It's okay. We're all working on being better at Magic. But I just ran the table. And there were people who were like, oh, wow, your deck's really powerful. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this deck doesn't win ever. And unfortunately, the unhappy time of a global spanning event happened, and all the local gaming stores closed. And so I didn't get to play Magic down in North Carolina some more. It was really sad. And I didn't get to play in Montana either when I had to go there for politics. But then I got back to Iowa, got back home after, a year and a half of traveling all over the place, organizing, and, fell right back into my pod. And like I said, Mitch came back, etc. And then I tried out the local gaming stores here the first couple times. And the same thing that happened in North Carolina happened. I went and did very, very well. And just, and this is also something to note. My friends and I never used the 1 to 10 system. Not ever. There was no rule 0, no 1 to 10. We just played our decks. And I think that actually happens a lot in pods. And so, like, when people are like, well, is your deck like a 1, a 2, 7? I'm like, I don't know. I would say 5 to 7, mid power, because I wasn't winning a lot in there. And then I win a lot. And people are like, it's stronger than that. I'm like, oh, my apologies. And then, a really clarifying moment for me is when the bracket system came out. And with the new bracket system here. And that showed that a lot of my decks, even the ones that are honestly like letter of the law, bracket 2 or bracket 3, are tuned in such a way that they play at a higher rate. Like, take my Azusa, my paper Azusa deck, for example. Let's see if I can bring it up here. My Azusa deck is bracket 3, right? It is, it's an Azusa deck. But, here it is. 1 second, friends. Pull this up here. And we'll switch to this. Yes. My Azusa deck here is really strong. It is very well tuned. It's about $660, and I've actually got to throw an old Gnawbone and an Blightsteel Colossus in here. But, it's Azusa. And like I said, I have to replace this and a couple other cards, but it's extremely tuned to the point where this deck wins a lot. And I brought this deck to my LGS. You can see there's been a couple upgrades since then, but it hung with the bracket 4s, even though it's like letter of the law, it's a bracket 3. I'm running 1 game changer in this deck. And so now that's honestly what spurred me to make like 40 commander decks is I want something that curates to everybody. So rather than doing the nuclear arms race that a lot of people get stuck with, that really bad went, I kind of gone a different route. I did my own nuclear arms race, but not where I make every deck super hyper powerful. I go with the quantity, right? I just have a deluge of decks. I have, at last count, 47 commander decks in paper, and I am building, let's see here, I have Tian La, Kratos, Toph Earthbending Master, if I can ever find one, Kratos and Atreus, Cleopatra, I think this is going to be a Craven the Hunter. Yeah. And then the Naya Toph, and then the Red Death, and then Zu Ifrit. All in construction right now. I have a problem, friends, with building decks. But so my way of nuclear arms race when it comes to pods isn't the same as, is no longer the nuclear proliferation in a single deck in a single pod, because I've noticed that I have to adjust to other players. Like when I reconnected with my friends Adam and Nick, it was awesome. And I didn't know, because of what happened at those LGSs, I didn't know what decks to bring to curate an experience, right? And I think the bracket system helped me out so much. So now, like when I brought them, I brought a variety. I brought Azusa, I brought Sharoom, I brought my really cruddy Frodo Baggins, like little commander deck. I brought Janara. I brought Deadpool and some others, all to curate different experiences. And that is my nuclear arms race now. Is when other people build their decks, I don't just put in new tech anymore. I build a different deck. And not all my decks get played equally. I try to play them all equally. But some do get ignored. Some, like Orvar, just don't get played very often because it's not very fun for my opponents. I pull it out in high bracket matches. But I kind of want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Go and watch Really Bad's video about EDH nuclear arms races. Again, please, please, please go watch, go check out his channel. Go and watch that video. And Really Bad, if you happen to see this video, let me know what you think of my own personal story. Your video really inspired me to talk about it, and it was really interesting to me because I see everything that you mentioned in that video, right? The nuclear arms race. From the time where I first started playing Commander, and I was playing things like Naya Hushblade in a deck, in my Mael deck to try to get there, to now where I have infinite combos with Springheart Nantuko and things like that in certain decks, or I have ways to copy a million lands in Orvar, or I, constructed a VV deck, which is its own form of nuclear arms race, right? But yeah, how about you guys? Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this idea of an EDH pod nuclear arms race. And let me know if you went and watched Really Bad's video. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you think of my own personal story around my pod's nuclear arms race. But yeah, as always, I am the Hidden Gibbon. I know my videos are not scripted. I know they don't have high production value, but I like talking from the heart and I like talking Magic. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, I'm Weston with the Hidden Gibbon, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.